Recording in progress.
Wigton Windfarm is more than a premier supplier of wind energy. At Wigton's state-of-the-art renewable energy lab, energy professionals, academics and tertiary students are trained in a range of subjects such as photovoltaic technologies, wind, small-scale hydro and bioenergy. And these students will become forerunners in the sector and aid its continued expansion. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. The financial and environmental costs of oil can be high. The clean energy generated at Wigton Windfarm reduces the need for fuel imported by 96,000 barrels annually, which translates to $4.9 million saved every year. And this saved foreign exchange can find its way to you through beneficial programs and projects. Because Wigton Windfarm is working to secure Jamaica's future. The 44 wind turbines at the Wigton Windfarm have a capacity of 62.7 megawatts. They can provide electricity for over 82,000 homes across Jamaica, reduce annual carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, and lessen the number of barrels of oil imported by 96,000, which translates to $4.9 million saved. Wigton is now the largest wind energy facility in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, and with its commitment to meeting the government's targets, it will no doubt continue to be a trailblazer in the energy sector. Generating electricity from the wind will take Jamaica closer to attaining energy security by reducing the country's dependence on imported oil and assist Jamaica to comply with international conventions on climate change. Wigton leads by example, creating a modern, efficient, sustainable energy generating facility that utilizes renewable energy, provides green jobs, saves Jamaica money, and facilitates Jamaica's energy security. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. Jamaica's beauty is legendary, and we have to do our part to preserve our environment. The green energy generated at Wigton Windfarm is better for our environment than fossil fuels because it decreases the amount of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide that are released into the atmosphere. Wigton's clean energy reduces Jamaica's carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, which lessens the disastrous effects of climate change, like high temperatures and floods. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. Wigton Windfarm is more than a premier supplier of wind energy. At Wigton's state-of-the-art renewable energy lab, energy professionals, academics and tertiary students are trained in a range of subjects, such as photovoltaic technologies, wind, small-scale hydro, and bioenergy. And these students will become forerunners in the sector and aid its continued expansion. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. The financial and environmental costs of oil can be high. The clean energy generated at Wigton Windfarm reduces the need for fuel imported by 96,000 barrels annually, which translates to $4.9 million saved every year. And this saved foreign exchange can find its way to you through beneficial programs and projects. Because Wigton Windfarm is working to secure Jamaica's future. The 44 wind turbines at the Wigton Windfarm have a capacity of 62.7 megawatts. They can provide electricity for over 82,000 homes across Jamaica, reduce annual carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, and lessen the number of barrels of oil imported by 96,000, which translates to $4.9 million saved. Wigton is now the largest wind energy facility in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, and with its commitment to meeting the government's targets, it will no doubt continue to be a trailblazer in the energy sector. Generating electricity from the wind will take Jamaica closer to attaining energy security by reducing the country's dependence on imported oil and assist Jamaica to comply with international conventions on climate change.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We will commence today's proceedings with the national anthem.
Eternal Father, bless our land. Guide us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Be our light through countless hours. To our leaders, great defenders, grant true wisdom from above. Justice fruits be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love. Teach us true respect for all. Stir response to duty's call. Strengthen us the weak to change. Give us visions lest we perish. Knowledge sent us, Heavenly Father, grant true wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, Jamaica,
I am Oliver Holmes, Chairman of Wigton Windfarm Limited, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the 2021 Annual General Meeting of Wigton Windfarm Limited. In keeping with the order of the Supreme Court that was made on the 31st day of May 2021, the meeting is being held in a virtual manner with the shareholders and participants online and live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. We decided to host the 2021 AGM in a virtual format, given the current COVID-19 pandemic and the need to preserve, to the greatest extent possible, the health and safety of our shareholders and team members. It was also considered that a virtual meeting will ensure a greater ability for you, our shareholders, to participate despite your physical location. I take this opportunity to thank you, our shareholders, and the dedicated and committed Wigton team for your continued support of our wonderful company. Our Managing Director, Mr. Earl Barrett, and the senior leadership team have demonstrated a level of commitment to the company that is second to none. This, coupled with the strong performance from our staff members, were primary factors which resulted in our company delivering very credible results for the financial year ended March 31st, 2021, during a period when Jamaica and the world experienced the greatest impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, an unprecedented period in our lifetime. Special thanks also to the members of the Board of Directors, who all have busy schedules, but notwithstanding, have dedicated quality time to oversee the affairs of the company at the board level, as well as through the various subcommittees which support the board. We look forward to emerging from this pandemic as we endeavor to maintain both operational and excellence and profit sustainability, the hallmarks of the way Wigton conducts his business. I now invite you to join us in prayer, led by our Managing Director, Mr. Earl Barrett. Mr. Barrett?
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this day and your children gathered here and via the internet for this, our second annual general meeting of the Wigton Windfarm Limited. We ask that you strengthen us and inspire us with your love and fill our hearts with peace, so that as we journey on, others will see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. Continue to guide us to be good stewards of your creation, so that all we do will be pleasing in your sight. Heavenly Father, we ask that you let our souls catch the wind of your Spirit, so that we would be inspired to lead others to magnify your holy name. For these and other mercies, we ask and give you thanks in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
In light of the virtual nature of our meeting, I ask our Finance Manager and Company Secretary, Mrs. Shawn Treasure, to take us through the guidelines for today's meeting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We kindly ask that you adhere to the following protocols. During the meetings, participants on the virtual platform will not be able to speak and all microphones will remain muted. You are encouraged to submit your questions prior to the Q&A session of the AGM by way of email to wigton.info@wwf.ja.com or by clicking the Q&A option of the bottom of your screens and typing your questions in the text box as it appears. Responses will be provided, time permitting, in the Q&A session. But for those questions that are not answered, the responses will be posted on our website after the AGM. In registering for the meeting, persons would have registered as shareholders or non-shareholders. As is customary, and during the meeting, shareholders will be able to vote on resolution once they have been moved and seconded. After each resolution is moved and seconded, shareholders will be able to vote by selecting the for or against button that will appear on your screens. 30 seconds will be allowed for the casting of votes, after which the results for each resolution will be displayed on your screens. If you voted prior to the meeting, there is no need to vote during the meeting. Non-shareholders will not be able to vote, but we encourage you to submit your questions to wigton.info@wwf.ja.com or by clicking the Q&A option at the bottom of your screens and typing your questions in the text box that will appear. In the event of any technical challenges, you may reach out to our team by clicking the help icon at the bottom left of your screens for assistance. Additionally, if we encounter any technical difficulties with the webcast during the meeting, please remain logged on and we will resume as soon as possible. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available online and the link uploaded to our website so you may access same. Forward-looking statements may be made in the presentations today. Please note that the actual actions and results may differ. We thank you in advance for complying with these guidelines and we look forward to a very successful meeting.
Mrs. Treasurer will perform the function of Secretary of today's AGM. Mrs. Treasurer, please advise whether we have a quorum.
We have 20 shareholders attending online and 4 employees who are also shareholders of Wigton in the room. We have therefore met the requirements for a quorum of 3 as stipulated by Article 64 of our company's Articles of Incorporation.
Thank you, Mrs. Treasurer. The meeting is now called to order. Shareholders, the notice of AGM virtual format, as well as the necessary information on the matters for consideration at the meeting, was published on Wigton's website and the Jamaica Stock Exchange's website. An advisory was also published in the Gleaner and the Jamaica Observer, and announcements made via Wigton's social media pages. Pursuant to the order of the court, and in accordance with which this meeting is being held virtually have a motion that of the meeting be taken.
I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion having been moved by Mr. Theomore Brown and seconded by Ms. Michelle Chinlen, shareholders, may we ask that you vote on the motion by selecting for or against the box as it appears on your screen in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see, the motion is carried. The resolution is indeed carried. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce the rest of the platform. Starting from my far left is Ms. Noreen Small, Attorney at Law, Mrs. Sean Treasure, our Finance Manager and Company Secretary, and the Secretary of this meeting. To my right is Mr. Earl Barrett, our Managing Director. I'd also like to acknowledge the members of the Board of Directors who are present online. Mr. Omar Azan, Mr. Dennis Chung, Chairman of the Audit, Finance and Investment Committee, Mr. Nigel Davey, and Mrs. M. Georgia Gibson-Henlin may not be present with us as yet, but we anticipate her joining us. Mrs. Henlin-Gibson is the chairperson of the Corporate Governance Committee. Mr. Hugh Johnson, Mr. Gregory Shirley, Chairman of the Nominations and Compensation Committee, and Mrs. Jacqueline Stewart Leckler, and Mr. Dan Theok. I wish to especially acknowledge our shareholders who are in attendance with us this morning and those who are participating online. A very special welcome to you all. I note for the benefit of our shareholders that the minutes of the 2020 Annual General Meeting held on October 21, 2020 are available and may be accessed from the company's website. I now turn matters over to our Managing Director, Mr. Earl Barrett, who will present his report. Mr. Barrett.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our second annual general meeting since being listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. This is the second year we are holding our AGM under the shadow of the COVID pandemic, and we acknowledge the challenges we have all faced as a global community because of this virus. For most of us, we have learned to live with the pandemic and also how to minimize the negative impact on our lives and businesses. On the announcement of the COVID-19 pandemic, we took decisive, coordinated actions to ensure the health and safety of our employees, especially those who work at the plant. The pandemic resulted in Wigton implementing protocols and measures even more stringent than the Health Ministry to ensure the safety and well-being of team members who of necessity must work in close proximity. Adjusting the maintenance and repair schedules to maintain or alleviate the negative impact of the disruption caused by dislocation in the supply chain. Managing liquidity and cost reduction. And despite all the challenges, we continue to give back to our community. While the pandemic posed its challenges, Wigton performed well during the 2020-2021 financial year and closed the year well capitalized with strong liquidity. During the period, production from the 62.7 megawatt wind farm was 158 gigawatt hours, and this resulted in revenue of $2.6 billion from sales to the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited. This, despite an average plant availability of 93.3%, which was a 1.4 reduction when compared to the prior year. Overall, the company made a net profit of $792.7 million, a 19% increase when compared to the net profit of $662.7 million earned in the previous year. This performance must be credited to the Board of Directors for the support and guidance provided, the management team, and all staff members, and of course, our business fundamentals, which continue to remain strong. The Wigton team has proven themselves highly resilient and continue to deliver to the company during these difficult circumstances. We continue to prioritize the safety of our team and train them to operate and maintain our turbines to keep the company functioning at world-class levels. The company, in keeping with its operational excellence, maintained its record of 0 incidents or accidents during this period. Additionally, with the implementation of certain COVID health protocols and operational measures, the company experienced no outbreak of the virus at the plants and remained operational with maintenance activities being appropriately scheduled and completed. We continue to work to develop and enhance management systems, policies, and procedures to ensure that this safety record is maintained. The lockdown and restrictions from country to country and the disruption in the supply chain did have a negative impact as it delayed in spares and equipment deliveries were disrupted and normal maintenance activities had to be appropriately adjusted. However, as stated before, the team nevertheless adjusted as necessary and developed appropriate alternative schedules to manage the negative impacts. In line with the company core values of high ethical standards and integrity, the company remain accountable and continue to always act in the best interests of the shareholders and employees. The established tenet of continuous learning ensure that our employees are appropriately trained and are knowledgeable of the ever-changing and evolving nature of the energy industry. Resilience and drive for good results ensure our current operations, the Windfarm and the training lab at Rosehill in Manchester, are maintained by ensuring a high level of availability and production from all facets of the business. We have adapted well to the changing environments brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic and its restrictions on face-to-face learning. Environmental protection and safety are fundamental tenets of our operation. Wigton maintains a 100% clean energy facility, and environment protection and safety are critical components of the company's operation. Being a renewable energy company, we remain focused on reducing the country's carbon footprint and use of fossil fuels. Community support, Wigton understand that is in addition to the primary commitment of safety and profitability and ensuring values for our shareholders, the continuity of our community activities which operate must be also seeing tangible benefits that serve to reinforce our position as a good corporate citizens. Given the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on schools and education during the period, Wigton donated tablets to students and 2 laptop computers to teachers at the Rosehill Primary and Infant School in Rosehill, Manchester. Giving back to our community in areas of education, crime prevention, community development, and environmental protection continue to be a priority. In terms of our financial performance for the year ending March 31st, 2021, we ended with a net profit of $792.7 million. The period closed with an earnings per share of 7 cents. Sales revenue of approximately $2.6 billion reflected a 7.3% increase above the $2.4 billion for the prior year. Total revenue was $2.8 billion, which reflected a 6.5% increase when compared to the prior year of $2.6 billion, which was due to an increase in interest income and foreign exchange gains. Interest income increased to $91.2 million from $52.7 million, and foreign exchange gain from $81.4 million, which was $34.7 million in the prior year. Total expense was $1.28 billion, a 3% or $37 million increase from the $1.24 billion in the prior year. Increase in expense year on year occurred due mainly to increase from repairs and maintenance and higher insurance premium. The company, however, benefited from savings on staff costs. Gross profits of $1.8 billion or 9.1% increase when compared to the prior year of $1.7 billion. This change was due mainly to a higher sales volume. The year ended with total assets of $10.8 billion. a 1.9 increase over the prior year, which was $10.6 billion. This was mainly due to increase in the value of the current assets to $3.7 billion, a $24.6 billion increase over the previous year of $3 billion. Total liabilities were $6.58 billion, a decrease of $562 billion, or 7.9% when compared to the previous year of $7.14 billion. The change occurred because of a significant decrease in the long-term liabilities, as the Series A bond of $710 million was repaid in December of 2020. Current liabilities were reduced by $730.2 million from the $847 million in the prior year. The world is faced with challenges related to climate change, urban pollution, health vulnerability, and inflation. There is a growing conviction that these challenges could be addressed or moderated through the growing use of cleaner energy. Shareholders are therefore reminded of their long-term investment in a company that is well positioned to grow and contribute to the general direction of the country and the world. The increase in the use of green energy, specifically renewable energy, is now a global priority. We acknowledge the limitation of the current legal framework for the development and implementation of renewable energy in Jamaica. While remaining ready for the government's issuance of a call for renewable energy to the grid, Wigton, through its board and management, has actively considered the strategic direction of the company and is charting a course to ensure the growth in shareholders' value. This is so as we cannot lose sight of our sustainability and goals to continuously improve our performance. Part of our green strategy is to, therefore, go forth in supporting power users to simplify their lives and act in a more ecological and energy efficient way. Wigton, as a part of its diversification, which it is actively pursuing locally and regionally, is considering smart energy solutions to include the development and implementation of solutions involving other forms of renewable, such as solar. Wigton also acknowledged the general direction and support for electric vehicles and other solutions boosting energy efficiency. While Wigton sees the need to diversify and further support large power users, wind energy is still a priority and remain in our core business and for continued and new investment. With the 2024 expiration of Wigton 1 now looming, we are actively taking steps to ensure that this phase of the plant will continue to operate beyond that expiration date and with a newer and more efficient equipment. While we can look back and feel some level of satisfaction about the results of the past year, we believe that the real phase of accelerated growth for Wigton is only now gathering momentum, and the company at the end of 2021-22 financial year at approximately $3.2 billion, which is largely being retained to support the development of future projects and initiatives that will be implemented. There is no denying the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has challenged every nation, froze economic priorities, and forced the world to divert time and resources to manage this crisis. This in turn impacted Wigton's progress in cementing game-changing partnerships to diversify its business across industries, locally and regionally. Nevertheless, there are a number of local initiatives that Wigton has been working on and which should see partnerships and implementation in the short term. In terms of training, Wigton continued to operate the Renewable Energy Lab at the plant in Rosehill, Manchester, with training in core areas of renewable energy being offered. The COVID-19 pandemic has limited the delivery of certain programs which contain practical components. However, in line with the impact of the pandemic and the positive changes it is enforcing in our societies, Wigton is considering online delivery of its program, even those which have practical components. We are optimistic about the future of Wigton and look forward to what lies ahead. The internal strategic initiative position us well to deliver steady and consistent growth going forward. We will remain focused and disciplined on the implementation of our strategic plan and on sustaining value creation for you, our shareholders. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude my remarks by expressing my thanks to the more than 29,000 shareholders for your loyalty and continued confidence. Again, I would like to thank the board for their support and counsel, and the Wigton team for their continued dedication and hard work. The challenge of working with the virus will continue to test our abilities, our endurance, and our resourcefulness. It is a challenge that we must rise to, and I'm very confident that the Wigton team will deliver. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett. Shareholders, I'm sure you will all agree with me that all things considered, our Managing Director's report confirms that we had a successful 2021, both operationally and financially, and that your Wigton team continues to act in the best interest of all stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for our question and answer segment of the proceedings, and we have allotted 20 minutes for this segment. We will do our best to respond to your questions during the time allotted. However, if we are unable to respond to any questions submitted, the answers will be placed on our website after the meeting. Questions may be submitted to the email address wigton.info@wwfja.com up to the time of the close of this meeting. I will read the questions and direct them to our Managing Director, who will provide answers with the assistance of his team as necessary. And our first question comes from Mr. Kwesi Faulkner, who asks, what role does Wigton play in shaping the direction of the climate change initiatives in Jamaica? Mr. Barrett, could you please address the question?
Wigton remains the largest renewable energy company in Jamaica and regionally in the English-speaking Caribbean. We have placed Jamaica, I think, regionally and globally in a very strong position to be the only entity to have been involved in carbon trading in that market when it was very active. We continue to aim to continue the carbon trading, and as we speak, we're presently doing the audit of our existing system with the hope that the market will re-emerge. And coming out of the COP26 conference, which just concluded, there seemed to be a strong resurgence, certainly in Europe, for renewable energy, and hence for those countries who can't meet their targets, we could see the carbon market re-emerging. So Jamaica is well placed and is making a difference in that market.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Our second question is from Mrs. Hyacinth Sims, who asks, why was there a rate reduction in relation to Wigton Phase 2?
Okay. As with all of the phases of Wigton, we have entered into a 20-year contract agreement with the off-taker of the energy, which is a Jamaica Public Service Company. When the opportunity presented itself for Wigton 2 to be able to take what was called a front-loaded rate, that is, there is a rate per kilowatt hour which exists for the 20 years, but there was the opportunity to take a larger portion of that rate up front. And we thought that that would have been beneficial to the company, and so Wigton opted to modify its contract with the off-taker to take a larger portion of the rate in the first 10 years of the contract. And what you must recognize is that the rate per kilowatt hour will be averaged over the 20-year lifetime of the contract. All that was done is that we took a larger portion of the funds up front. And what it was able to do is put us in a very, very strong position to have won a successful bid by having the equity required for a Wigton Phase 3. So there was no loss of income to the company. The company has benefited from taking the front-loaded rate. And what we're seeing now is just a realignment of our cash flow during this period. So the rate reduction was anticipated and is part of the contract with the off-takers.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. We have two questions from the Jamaica Credit Union Pension Fund Limited. The first of which is, what is the future direction of Wigton? Mr. Barrett?
I could answer that very quickly to say the future of Wigton is very strong, but let me put a little bit more onto it. Wigton, as you would have heard in my presentation, is seeking very, very actively to diversify its portfolio. If you look within Jamaica, there is strong competition in the renewable energy space, and we are also limited by being tied to the growth of the economy. So there is not going to be, we can't, even though we have projects ready to implement in Jamaica, we can't build a plant, a renewable energy plant, and say somebody will come and take the energy. There has to be a call from the government. So what the board and management have been actively doing over the last year, and even before that, was to seek businesses that would have some linkages with energy, but also, even if there's no direct linkage, where we could diversify so we can build shareholders' wealth. So the future of Wigton, from our perspective, is extremely bright. The future of Wigton is extremely bright because there is a renewed drive for renewable energy in the modern economies of the world. And the Caribbean is far behind the rest of the world in terms of the percentage of renewable energy that is being consumed or is being offered to consumers. So I would say the future of Wigton is bright, and the direction is very, very wide open and exciting for us as management and board of the company.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. I suspect you have essentially answered the second question from the Jamaica Credit Union Pension Fund, which is, what are the current revenue streams and what are the projections for new revenue streams going forward? But maybe you could just give 2 sentences in response.
Certainly. Well, just to go to the first part of the question, of the second part of the question too. The first part of the second part of the question. The revenue stream as we speak, it's from the sale of renewable energy to the grid. And the second part of it is from our training lab in South Manchester, which offer training to Jamaicans and the Caribbean in most of the areas of renewable energy. So those are the 2 energy streams we have, and revenue streams we have now. But going forward, as I said earlier, we are seeking to diversify the business and grow the business.
Mr. Barrett? Our next question comes from NCB Capital Markets Limited, and it reads, why was there no declaration of a dividend in the 2020-2021 financial year?
Okay. I would want to think that most of the persons who invested in Wigton do have a basic idea that it's the renewable energy industry is capital intensive. And even if you go outside of the business that we are in as we are seeking to, most of our financial institutions or lenders, whether they be local or international, if you come to the market to borrow funds, the first question they will ask you, what do you bring to the table? So we are heavily capital intensive, so we need to retain earnings so that when the opportunity comes, and certainly we are looking at a number of initiatives which will require us having a certain amount of equity. So it was a decision of the board and management to retain the money we have, and I spoke to it when I addressed you earlier, that we have a strong liquidity, but we also have a number of projects that we are going after that will require this money and more. So we figured that it was in the best interest of the company and the shareholders to not pay a dividend at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. We also have two questions from Mr. David Rose. The first is, what is your plan to deal with the company's retirement of phase 1 in 2024, which I know you addressed in your report, but again, could give a specific response to.
Again, I would say that we have been for a while planning for this, and we are well on our way for the replacement and continuation of the Wigton phase 1. It is a fairly complex process that we are in, but we can assure the shareholders that there will be no missed steps as we continue the business of replacing equipment as needed and having the life extension of Wigton phase 1. So that is well on the way. The engineering is being done as we speak. Quotations are coming in, and the process continues. So the person or entity that asked that question can be well assured that this will be a serious part of our actions going forward, and we are well on top of it.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. The second question from Mr. David Rose reads, as Wigton explored the options of working with the government of Jamaica to implement more solar options at Wigton's existing location.
That is not a matter so much for the government. As you recognize, we are a private entity. So again, the way that energy is added to the grid, as the government now has it, it's when a call is made through an arm of the government, which is now called the government procurement entity. And until such a call is made, even if Wigton had the funds, had the desire to add more power or put in more power equipment, Wigton will only be able to use that for their own business. So we'd have to set up a business to use that power from anything else we put in. We couldn't put it to the grid. The government will have to change. I know they're working on the Electricity Act as we speak, and we wait with bated breath as to what will come of that. So we look forward for many changes because we think there were areas that could do with modifications, but we will wait until the government comes out with that new policy and see how it impacts people who are in renewables such as Wigton. But certainly we cannot go and put up a new wind farm, a new turbine, without there's a call for it, and it has to be sold to the grid because that's the way the Electricity Act now reflects.
Shareholders, we have addressed those questions that were submitted. Do you have any other coming in? We have another question from Mr. Rose, which reads, what is Wigton going to do to secure more bids to provide energy to other prospects within the region?
It's not what we're going to do, it's what we have been doing. Wigton is now set up as the thematic hub for wind energy in the region. And so all of the CARICOM countries are now seeing Wigton as the focal point for wind energy. We have been seeking very actively and have only been held at bay by the pandemic to work with all of our CARICOM neighbors that are thinking of renewable energy, whether it be wind or solar. We are saying, let Wigton be your first call. As you're aware, that the CARICOM countries should, and I use the word should, I would have liked to say must, but by the CARICOM Treaty, that their first call for projects in the different CARICOM countries should be seeking to go to other CARICOM countries. Wigton think it is well positioned to offer service in training, in the implementation from design to installation, supervision, to commissioning, to operation in renewable energy. And we have been beating the pavement across the Caribbean to do just that. So I think we're well on our way. It's not what we're going to do, it's what we are doing across the Caribbean.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. And our next question is from Mr. Tariq Gale, who asks, will Wigton go into photovoltaic or solar energy to make up for low wind speed?
It is a system that we have tried before. We have sought in the past to work with our different stakeholders, including the government, OUR, JPS, to say that we have the land space available where the existing wind farms are, and to seek to see how we could have interspersed photovoltaic in such areas. There has been less than lukewarm interest in such because, again, it comes back to the very stringent guidelines that the government has put in place, which sometimes you're trying to make the thing very formal, very structured, but you can end up tying your hands and feet, and then you're expected to run. Because we have the space, could put that in. But the way the contracts are written, the way the PPA was structured, under the guidance of the government, was that you can only install so much energy, units, for the energy you're going to supply. You could not put in the excess and say you can supply only that amount. That's in the past. We think a change is afoot, and we certainly will be actively pursuing how we could intersperse solar panels between the turbines so that when the sun is shining bright and there is no wind, we could have energy going into the system. So that is certainly on the table and has been on the table for a while. We expect that the change is afoot to make it happen as we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Shareholders, we have addressed those questions that have been submitted, but please remember that should any question have been submitted up to the close of this meeting, we will be posting the responses on our website. So thank you very much for your questions, and thank you, Mr. Barrett, for the comprehensive responses that you have provided, sir. We now move to the auditor's report, which was circulated to the shareholders by way of the annual report and the notice convening the meeting. I'll now invite Mrs. Tricia Ann Smith da Silva, partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, to present the auditor's report.
Independent Auditor's Report. To the members of Wigton Windfarm Limited, report on the audit of the financial statements. Our opinion. In our opinion, the financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of Wigton Windfarm Limited, the company, as at 31 March 2021, and of its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, and with the requirements of the Jamaican Companies Act. What we have audited. The company's financial statements comprise the statement of financial position as at 31 March 2021, the statement of comprehensive income for the year then ended, the statement of changes in equity for the year then ended, the statement of cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes to the financial statements, which include significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. Basis for opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with International Standards on Auditing, ISOs. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements section of our report. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Independence. We are independent of the company in accordance with the International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards, issued by the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, IESBA Code. We have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the IESBA Code. Our audit approach. Audit scope. As part of designing our audit, we determine materiality and assess the risk of material misstatement in the financial statements. In particular, we considered where management made subjective judgments, for example, in respect of significant accounting estimates that involve making assumptions and considering future events that are inherently uncertain. As in all of our audits, we also address the risk of management override of internal controls, including, among other matters, consideration of whether there was evidence of bias that represented a risk of material misstatement due to fraud. We tailored the scope of our audit in order to perform sufficient work to enable us to provide an opinion on the financial statements as a whole, taking into account the structure of the company, the accounting processes and controls, and the industry in which the company operates. Key audit matters. Key audit matters are those matters that, in our professional judgment, were of most significance in our audit of the financial statements of the current period. These matters were addressed in the context of our audit of the financial statements as a whole and informing our opinion thereon, and we do not provide a separate opinion on these matters. We have determined that there are no key audit matters to communicate in our report. Other information. Management is responsible for the other information. The other information comprises the annual report, but does not include the financial statements and our auditor's report thereon, which is expected to be made available to us after the date of this auditor's report. Our opinion on the financial statement does not cover the other information, and we will not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with our audit of the financial statements, our responsibility is to read the other information identified above when it becomes available, and in doing so, consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the financial statements or our knowledge obtained in the audit or otherwise appears to be materially misstated. When we read the annual report, if we conclude that there is a material misstatement therein, we are required to communicate the matter to those charged with governance. Responsibilities of management and those charged with governance for the financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with IFRS and with the requirements of the Jamaican Companies Act, and for such internal control as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the company's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing as applicable matters related to going concern, and using the going concern basis of accounting unless management either intends to liquidate the company or to cease operations or has no realistic alternative but to do so. Those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the company's financial reporting process. Auditors' responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISOs will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if, individually or in the aggregate, they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions of users taken on the basis of these financial statements. As part of an audit in accordance with ISOs, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess the risk of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks, and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than for one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, or the override of internal controls. Obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the company's internal control. Evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates and related disclosures made by management. Conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting, and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may cause significant doubt on the company's ability to continue as a going concern. If we conclude that a material uncertainty exists, we are required to draw attention in our auditor's report to the related disclosures in the financial statements, or if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify our opinion. Our conclusions are based on audit evidence obtained up to the date of our auditor's report. However, future events or conditions may cause a company to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the financial statements, including the disclosures, and whether the financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that achieves fair presentation. We communicate with those charged with governance regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit, and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies in internal control that we identify during our audit. We also provide those charged with governance with a statement that we have complied with relevant ethical requirements regarding independence, and to communicate with them all relationships and other matters that may reasonably be thought to bear on our independence, and where applicable, actions taken to eliminate threats or safeguards applied. From the matters communicated with those charged with governance, we determined those matters that were of most significance in the audit of the financial statements of the current period and are therefore the key audit matters. We describe these matters in our auditor's report unless law or regulation precludes public disclosure about the matter, or when, in extremely rare circumstances, we determine that a matter should not be communicated in our report because the adverse consequences of doing so would reasonably be expected to outweigh the public interest benefits of such communication. Report on other legal and regulatory requirements. As required by the Jamaica Companies Act, we have obtained all information and explanations which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purposes of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been kept so far as appears from our examination of those records, and the accompanying financial statements are in agreement therewith and give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in the manner so required. The engagement partner on the audit resulting in this independent auditor's report is Tricia Ann Smith da Silva, signed PricewaterhouseCoopers, Chartered Accountants, Kingston, Jamaica, dated 25th May 2021.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Smith da Silva. We now move to the director's report. And may we have a motion that the director's report circulated to the shareholders by way of the annual report and the notice convening the meeting be taken as read. Be tabled and taken as read.
So move.
Thank you. Thank you. The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, please cast your votes by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. Shareholders, we are having a bit of technical difficulty with this particular resolution. So motion, and so I'm going to move to resolution number 1, and we will come back to the motion in relation to the director's report. So resolution number 1, may we have a motion that the audited financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2021, and the report of the auditors circulated with the notice convening the meeting be and are hereby adopted.
I so move.
Thank you. Thank you. The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, we now ask that you vote on resolution number 1 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. Shareholders, the results are in, and as you can see, the votes for have it. I therefore declare the resolution carried. We will now move to resolution number 2. And may we have a motion that, as recommended by the directors, no dividend payment be made in respect of the year ended March 31, 2021.
I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion having been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown, shareholders, I now ask that you vote on resolution number 2 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see from your screen, the votes in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Resolution number 3. In accordance with Article 101 of the Articles of Incorporation of the company, the directors retiring from office by rotation and who, being eligible, offer themselves for re-election are Mrs. M. Georgia Gibson Henlin, QC, Mrs. Jacqueline Stewart Leclo, Mr. Omar Azan. All the directors mentioned have had an excellent attendance record, and the board is very satisfied that the directors continue to make valuable contributions to the board and have demonstrated their commitment to serve the company. Further details on the directors may be accessed on the company's website and in the annual report. May we have a motion that the directors retiring by rotation, that is, Mrs. M. Georgia Gibson Henlin, QC, Mrs. Jacqueline Stewart Leclo, and Mr. Omar Azan, be re-elected en bloc.
I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Mr. Brown and seconded by Ms. Chin-Len. Shareholders, I now ask you to vote on resolution number 3 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen, in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Resolution number 4. May we therefore have a motion that the retiring directors, Mrs. M. Georgia Gibson Henlin, QC, Mrs. Jacqueline Stewart Leclo, and Mr. Omar Azan, be and are hereby re-elected directors of the company.
I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Mr. Brown and seconded by Ms. Chin-Len. Shareholders, I now ask you to vote on resolution number 4 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen, in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Resolution number 5, remuneration of independent non-executive directors. May we have a motion that the amount shown in the audited financial statements of the company for the year ended March 31st, 2021, as fees paid to the non-executive independent directors for their services as directors be and is hereby approved.
I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, I now ask that you vote on resolution number 5 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen, in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see on your screen, the votes in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. We now turn to the appointment and remuneration of the company's auditors in resolution number 6. May we please have a motion that PricewaterhouseCoopers, having signified their willingness to serve, continue in office as auditors of the company pursuant to Section 154 of the Companies Act and hold office until the conclusion of the next annual general meeting at a remuneration to be fixed by the directors of the company.
I so move.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, I now ask that you vote on resolution number 6 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen, in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see, the votes in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. I will now ask Mrs. Treasurer, Secretary of the meeting, to take us through the special resolutions. Mrs. Treasurer?
The Articles of Incorporation of the company stipulates that directors over the age of 70 years may retire and offer themselves for re-election. We have two such directors on our board, Mr. Oliver W. Holmes and Mr. Gregory Shirley. Resolution number 7. May we have a motion that Oliver W. Holmes, who attained the age of 70 years, be reappointed as director of the company pursuant to Article 91 of the company's Articles of Incorporation for a period of 2 years.
I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlin and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, I now ask you to vote on resolution number 7 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen in favor or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Resolution number 8. May we have a motion that Gregory Shirley, who attained the age of 70 years, be reappointed as director of the company pursuant to Article 91 of the company's Articles of Incorporation for a period of 2 years.
I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Mr. Brown and Ms. Chinlin. Shareholders, I now ask you to vote on resolution number 8 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your vote. The results are in. As you can see, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Resolution number 9. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, many companies found it difficult to convene physical or face-to-face general meetings. The board therefore recommends amendments to the company's articles of incorporation to allow for such hybrid and virtual meetings going forward. Additionally, to eliminate any uncertainty as to the power of the board to approve matters related to a conflict of interest and to ensure that the provisions of the articles are in compliance with Section 174A of the Companies Act, the board recommends an amendment to the article. As it sets out in the notice, may we therefore have a motion that the articles of incorporation of the company be amended as follows. A, include in Article 1.1 the following. Electronic means includes any method of dispatch or communication of sounds, documents, maps, photography, videography, graphs, planned or other data which involves the use of equipment or technology having electrical, digital, magnetic, wireless, optical, electromagnetic, photographic, or similar capabilities, including but not limited to facsimile machines, electronic drop boxes, posting on the company's website, email sent via computers and scanning devices. Hybrid meetings. Hybrid meetings mean a meeting that is held both at a physical venue and a virtual venue using electronic means that give members and directors as a whole, including members and directors not physically in attendance at the physical venue, a reasonable opportunity to participate. Nominating director means a director who has elected to receive notice and notice documents by electronic means or in electronic form and has provided the company with a facsimile transmission number, electronic email address, or other electronic means of receiving notice and notice documents. Nominating member means a member who has elected to receive notice and notice documents by electronic means or in electronic form and has provided the company with a facsimile transmission number, electronic mail address, or other electronic means of receiving notice and notice documents. Virtual meeting means a meeting held wholly by electronic means and which gives members and directors as a whole a reasonable opportunity to participate. B, delete Article 1.2c. C, insert directly after Article 57, Article 58, which shall read, 1. Notwithstanding anything in these articles, the company may, to the fullest extent permitted by applicable law, convene and hold a meeting of its members as a hybrid meeting or a virtual meeting, and every notice calling a hybrid meeting or a virtual meeting shall identify the meeting as such. 2. If the company holds a hybrid meeting, it shall have power to limit the number of persons in attendance at any physical venue to such number as may be allowed under applicable law. 3. The notice of a virtual meeting need not specify a physical venue, but shall be recorded as held in Jamaica. 4. Where the company holds a hybrid meeting or a virtual meeting, the use of electronic means for the purpose of enabling members to participate in such meeting may be made subject only to such requirements and restrictions as are: 1. Necessary to ensure the identification of persons attending and participating in the general meeting and the security of electronic means. And 2. Proportionate to the achievement of the objective of a general meeting of members of the company, such that members have every opportunity as might reasonably be afforded by the company to participate in the hybrid meeting or virtual meeting as the case may be. 5. Where the company holds a hybrid meeting or a virtual meeting, it shall have powers to require reasonable evidence of the entitlement of any person who is not a member to participate in such meeting. 6. The right of a member to attend a hybrid meeting or a virtual meeting may be exercised by the member's proxy, and notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in these articles, a proxy form may be returned to the company by electronic means and shall be deemed to have been deposited for the purposes of Article 82 and valid, provided that the company is able to identify the proxy form as being duly stamped in accordance with the applicable law. 7. A member who, at any hybrid meeting or virtual meeting, either votes by electronic means or 2, using electronic means which provide a reasonable opportunity to participate, shall, for all intent and purposes of these articles, be treated as attending the meeting in person, and if he casts a vote, as voting in person. 8. Any technical failure or inability of a member to remain in any meeting convened in accordance with this Article 58 shall not invalidate any resolutions passed or proceedings taken at such meetings, provided that a quorum is present at all times. D. Amend Article 121 as follows. A director who is in any way, whether directly or indirectly, interested in a contract or proposed contract with the company shall declare the nature of his interest in the manner provided by Section 193 of the Act, and the provisions of such section shall be deemed to apply to these articles, which interest may be approved by the directors as required by Section 174A, 4B of the Act. E. Amend Article 61 as follows. Every notice calling a general meeting shall specify the place and/or online location where applicable, or details sufficient to facilitate attendance by members, and the day and hour of the meeting, and there shall appear with reasonable prominence in every such notice a statement that a member entitled to attend and vote is entitled to appoint a proxy or proxies to attend, and instead of him, that a proxy need not be a member of the company. F. Amend Article 170 as follows. Any notice or notice document, including a share certificate, may be given by the company to any member either personally or by sending it by electronic means or through the post in a prepaid covered address to such member at his registered office, or to the office, if any, supplied by him to the company as his address for the service of notices, or by delivering it to such an address as aforesaid. G. Insert directly after Article 171, Article 171A, which shall read, without prejudice to such other means of giving notice to members and directors as may be permitted by these articles, notice, including notice of a meeting or any notice document given to a nominating member or a nominating director may be effected by A, sending such notice and any notice document to the facsimile transmission number or electronic mail address provided to the company by the nominating member or nominating director. B, sending to the nominating member or nominating director by any electronic means nominated by the nominating member or nominating director. Or C, posting or uploading the notice and any notice documents in or to a Dropbox or other file sharing system or electronic document depository and providing the nominating member and or nominating director with a passcode or other means to electronically access the notice or such notice document. Any notice or notice document given to a nominating member or nominating director by electronic means shall be deemed to have been received by the intended recipient at the expiration of 24 hours after the notice or notice document was electronically transmitted to the nominating member or nominating director, or after the nominating member or nominating director is provided with the relevant passcode or electronic access to the Dropbox or other file sharing system or electronic document depository. 3, a defect in any electronic notice or failure in case of electronic delivery system shall not invalidate the notices unless the failure is such as to cause non-delivery or misdelivery of more than 5% of the notices dispatched. Finally, H, amend Article 179 as follows. Without prejudice to such other means of giving notice to members and directors, each member by subscribing for shares or by purchasing or otherwise acquiring shares in the company, and each director by accepting office hereby takes to provide the company with his email or other electronic address and consents to the company sending notices and any other documents to him by electronic means or in electronic form, confirms that notice sent in such form or such means shall be deemed to be notice in writing for purposes of the Act.
I so move.
Seconded.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Mr. Brown and seconded by Ms. Jinlin. Shareholders, I now ask that you vote on resolution number 9 by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to vote. The results are in. As you can see, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Chair, I now turn matters back over to you.
Thank you, Mrs. Treasurer. Shareholders, as you recall, we had technical difficulty in addressing the motions for the director's report, so I now return there. And may we have a motion that the director's report circulated to the shareholders by way of the annual report and the notice convening the meeting be tabled and taken as read.
I so move.
Seconded.
The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, please cast your vote by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen, in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see on your screen, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Will the secretary table the director's report?
So tabled, Chair.
Thank you. May we have a motion that the director's report for the year ended March 31st, 2021, circulated with a notice convening the meeting, be and is hereby adopted.
I so move.
Seconded.
The motion has been moved by Ms. Chinlen and seconded by Mr. Brown. Shareholders, we now ask that you vote on this motion by selecting the for or against button as it appears on your screen, in favor of or against this motion. You have 30 seconds to cast your votes. The results are in, and as you can see on your screen, those in favor have it. I declare the resolution carried. Shareholders, I'd just like to take you back for a few moments to our Q&A, where we have a suggestion from Mr. David Rose that for future AGMs, we consider allocating 40 minutes to the question and answer segment. I'd just like to give Mr. Rose our assurance that this suggestion will definitely be considered. Shareholders, this concludes the agenda of this meeting. Thank you for your continued support of Wigton. I'm sure you will agree that this virtual meeting was a success. Thanks to the Wigton team who made the AGM possible. Continue to keep safe, have a prosperous 2022, and we look forward to your participation again at our next general meeting. Thank you, and have a very safe afternoon.
Yes.
The 44 wind turbines at the Wigton Windfarm have a capacity of 62.7 megawatts. They can provide electricity for over 82,000 homes across Jamaica, reduce annual carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, and lessen the number of barrels of oil imported by 96,000, which translates to $4.9 million saved. Wigton is now the largest wind energy facility in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, and with its commitment to meeting the government's targets, it will no doubt continue to be a trailblazer in the energy sector. Generating electricity from the wind will take Jamaica closer to attaining energy security by reducing the country's dependence on imported oil and assist Jamaica to comply with international conventions on climate change. Wigton leads by example, creating a modern, efficient, sustainable energy generating facility that utilizes renewable energy, provides green jobs, saves Jamaica money, and facilitates Jamaica's energy security. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. Jamaica's beauty is legendary, and we have to do our part to preserve our environment. The green energy generated at Wigton Windfarm is better for our environment than fossil fuels because it decreases the amount of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide that are released into the atmosphere. Wigton's clean energy reduces Jamaica's carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, which lessens the disastrous effects of climate change like high temperatures and floods. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. Wigton Windfarm is more than a premier supplier of wind energy. At Wigton's state-of-the-art renewable energy lab, energy professionals, academics and tertiary students are trained in a range of subjects, such as photovoltaic technologies, wind, small-scale hydro, and bioenergy. And these students will become forerunners in the sector and aid its continued expansion. Wigton Windfarm, working to secure Jamaica's future. The financial and environmental costs of oil can be high. The clean energy generated at Wigton Windfarm reduces the need for fuel imported by 96,000 barrels annually, which translates to $4.9 million saved every year. And this saved foreign exchange can find its way to you through beneficial programs and projects. Because Wigton Windfarm is working to secure Jamaica's future. The 44 wind turbines at the Wigton Wind Farm have a capacity of 62.7 megawatts. They can provide electricity for over 82,000 homes across Jamaica, reduce annual carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, and lessen the number of barrels of oil imported by 96,000, which translates to $4.9 million saved. Wigton is now the largest wind energy facility in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, and with its commitment to meeting the government's targets, it will no doubt continue to be a trailblazer in the energy sector. Generating electricity from the wind will take Jamaica closer to attaining energy security by reducing the country's dependence on imported oil and assist Jamaica to comply with international conventions on climate change. Wigton leads by example, creating a modern, efficient, sustainable energy generating facility that utilizes renewable energy, provides green jobs, saves Jamaica money, and facilitates Jamaica's energy security. Wigton Wind Farm, working to secure Jamaica's future. Jamaica's beauty is legendary, and we have to do our part to preserve our environment. The green energy generated at Wigton Wind Farm is better for our environment than fossil fuels because it decreases the amount of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide that are released into the atmosphere. Wigton's clean energy reduces Jamaica's carbon dioxide emissions by 119,000 tons, which lessens the disastrous effects of climate change like high temperatures and floods. Wigton Wind Farm, working to secure Jamaica's future. Wigton Wind Farm is more than a premier supplier of wind energy. At Wigton's state-of-the-art renewable energy lab, energy professionals, academics and tertiary students